Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
what's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Antler Up Outdoors. All right, everybody. You remember this voice, do you? Slick Willie here. It is the middle of January, and it's been almost a month since we put a podcast out. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for sticking with us. It's been deer season came and left. It finished with a bang. If you've been following along, you saw the details. You see that Big Jim and I was able to punch one more tag and shoot a nice buck there on the, I don't know, it was the 29th, maybe Thursday of the holiday hunt. So I shot a nice buck there, tied it up between Jimbo and I in the Great American Harvey Whitetail Freezer Filling Contest, and couldn't be happier with the way that whole deer season played out. And we haven't had a chance to get everybody back together, especially my brother and I. I don't think Jimmy's been on the podcast almost all deer season. Anybody who's following along and anyone who's in the stage of life that we're in with having young kids and growing families and work being just rocking and rolling, which is nice for a change, it is very difficult to make this a top priority. And I hope you understand. I'm sure you understand. And I'm hearing it from you as I run into different people who listen to the podcast and have conversations. It's even hard sometimes to keep up with the show. So I don't feel too bad about not getting an episode out, but we're going to try to get back on like a 2-week interval here to have some content to share as we head into the off season and we begin our work in the woods and we start getting things like Shed Fest off the ground. We will be covering all of those things. So on that note, Shed Fest will be getting launched. I'm recording this on the 16th of January. Shed Fest will be getting launched end of this week. We've got an awesome shirt design this year, courtesy of Mark Haslam. Mark is a big deer hunter. He has a podcast of his own, the Southeast Whitetail Podcast, and he has a consulting business that he just started. And I follow him on Instagram, and I saw him post a picture of his new logo, which for his business, which is a picture of a chocolate lab with a shed horn in its mouth. And I said, oh my God, that would look awesome on a shirt if we use it for Shed Fest. And Mark has participated the last 2 years in Shed Fest, and I reached out, and he was pleasant enough and excited to say yes to us using that dog and shed on the shirt, and we passed it off to Mr. Russ Morgan, and Russ did his magic and put it all together on a T-shirt, and it looks badass. So we are in the process right now, and by we I mean I'm in the process right now of putting together the vendors and the sponsors of the event. Should be most the same folks as last year, which we appreciate you. And then we're going to add on a few more of people we've gotten to know and businesses we've started working with over the last year. So we're going to have some great prizes in store again. And we're going to go back to the first year's format of the contest, or more of a photo contest than it is a raffle. Last year we went with the raffle model. It worked good, but I really thought we had much more engagement, and for obvious reasons that when it was a photo contest and people had to submit their pictures, that obviously drove some more interaction in that through the social channels, which was a lot of fun, and it's always cool to see. It's no different than when you're actually out deer hunting, getting to see when people are finding sheds. You can kind of start to see, when not only the people are getting out and looking, but you can also see when the deer are dropping. So that's what I'm thinking we're going to do this year, is have that photo contest aspect. So all the details on how that will work will be in the posting when we put up the contest. But we will be doing the in-person portion of it again, April 23rd at Windy Brew. Probably do a midday, probably noon. We'll probably start it, probably do noon to 4 or something like that. And we will have the normal in-person event schedule. We'll have the live raffles. Probably the muzzleloader raffle has been a huge hit, and more people are getting into muzzleloader hunting, which is cool. So we'll probably get another muzzleloader to raffle off there. And I'm sure we'll have some stuff from the Huntworks and others, as well as lots of door prizes. So anybody who comes along can probably go home with something. So we're pretty excited about that. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now. And there's just a lot going on. My standard intros here, you guys get to hear about all the stuff what I think about and what I'm working on. Right now I am very, very busy at work. It feels like it should have in the summer. Things are finally arriving and ready to be delivered and put together for customers. So it's been busy, which is nice, and I'm enjoying the pace of it all and getting back to it. And the little munchkins are post-Christmas, and they are on track to getting things back on schedule. So life is good. I got nothing to complain about. It's cold out. The ground's freezing up, and the chainsaw is staring at me wanting to get going. So we've got a couple days of work into the woods so far, and I know we haven't really gotten ourselves up to full steam as we have the last 2 winters, but I know we will here as we get through January and into February and March. Dallas and Brian and I will be spending a lot of time at the farm working on our continued projects to improve habitat and get the understory going in some of these areas and clearing things out. So I'm sure we'll have some podcasts in that vein talking about those sorts of things too. So I think that's all I got for this intro of this week's show. This is going to be a crossover podcast I did with Antler Up last week. Jeremy, Dimitri, Jim, and I got on. This was for the Antler Up podcast, but I asked Jeremy if I could use the content to post over here too, in case it's anybody who doesn't listen to their show. Maybe give them a few more listeners. They've been doing a great job, keeping up with the content. Jeremy puts a ton of work in, and it's again a lot of relatable, relative stuff to us here in Western New York and the Northeast. What they do with their podcast, and Jeremy, I guess it would probably go back to maybe last fall or summer. He got onto the Sportsman's Empire Network, which that's the podcast network that Dan Johnson from Nine Fingers Chronicles. He has that network that he built there a few years ago, which seems to be doing some great things. I know John Teeter, he has his podcast on there, his Maximize Your Hunt podcast. I enjoy listening to John's stuff. Anybody who's been following us for a while knows that, I should probably get all the credit for John's success in podcasting, since he was first a guest with us and a many-time guest on our side of things. And it's been a lot of fun to see all these other folks around us that we've interacted with, to see their shows continue to grow and have success. And sounds like John's is one of the most highly downloaded habitat podcasts out there currently. And one of our other friends who does content has done content for us and been on podcasts for talking about habitat is Ben Williams, and he started his own podcast as well last fall, and Whitetails and Whiskey. And in a weird way, seeing some of these guys start their own podcasts, it kind of made me feel like the pressure wasn't on me to continue to put out lots of content, because these guys were doing a great job of putting content out, which is a lot of the same variety of things that we were doing and in the local version of it. So in a way, it's kind of made me feel like I don't need to kill myself to get an episode out, because I know that some of my friends and the people that we create content with are doing it at the same time. So I think it's pretty cool, and I'm happy for all these guys. I'm glad to see it, and I think the more good local content we have out there, the more people are aware of it and want to consume it. So it's good stuff. Go check out those guys and what they're doing. The Antler Up guys, John Teeter, who Maximize Your Hunt, and the Whitetails and Whiskey. It's all 3 different shows that are giving you kind of 3 different flavors of production, but all good stuff, and all people that we really enjoy interacting with. So I'm going to leave it at that. Have a great week, and get yourself ready for a big football game this weekend with the Buffalo Bills and the Bengals. Pretty fired up for that. And this weekend you'll also see some posts on our channels about Shedfest being launched. So thank you all. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and keep feeding them. Oh,
What's up? What's going on?
what's up, my Amish brother? The
All right,
beard,
hold
the
on.
beard's under control. I like it. You look domesticated.
Yeah, finally. Again.
I like the stash when he had that going for 2 days.
I know. It was pretty aggressive, to be honest with you.
Jim, are you there?
Hey, I'm
Okay, good.
Oh,
Jim.
What's up, Bill?
Nothing. You at home doing your neck exercises, are you?
Yeah, something like
We
that.
need to get into this. I don't know what the hell you're talking about today. You're messaging me about some lower back machine you bought, and it kind of
Dude,
creeps me
so,
out.
I bought it. Dude, I'm in a glass case of motion right now.
Is that right?
So, yeah. I bought a reverse hyper because I've had chronic back issues like most of my life. And 5 years ago, I had surgery on my L4, L5, S1 for ruptured discs. And since they did that surgery, I've been freaking awesome. But I recently tweaked it since I've been really kind of ramping things up in the weight room, like a knucklehead. And so now I'm back to like where even like sitting, standing, walking, everything is like I just have that nerve pain again, and it's bothering the shit out of me. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to minimize having to go under the knife or create a chronic issue even bigger than what I have. So I bought this machine called the Reverse Hyper, and what it does is you lay on your stomach, and it does like it's almost like doing a curl with your back.
Huh. Like it's something you sit down, or you?
No, you lay on your stomach. Your feet are off the floor.
Okay.
And you kind of hold on. It's almost like a Roman chair, but like you're on your stomach.
Interesting.
And
we're getting old.
And what it does is when your feet come towards your body underneath this chair, and it elongates your spine and allows blood flow and things into your vertebrae. And then when you come back with your feet, you're essentially doing a flexion with your low back muscles, and it'll help strengthen those muscles. So it's like a double, it's supposed to be really beneficial for low back issues.
No, it sounds good. And I mean, we can joke all we want about it, but back issues, leg issues, arm issues, no bueno. So that sucks, man. I had no idea. All this time we've spent together, getting to know each other, talking about inappropriate things, and I don't even know that you're like half broken as a man.
Well, Billy, I can't let you know all my weaknesses,
That's true. I would take advantage of you if I knew your lower back was weak. Well, this is off to a hot start, isn't it, Jer?
Yeah.
But this is, I told you, we're going to shoot from the hip, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. So.
Billy did try to blow my back out at deer camp this year.
Yeah, we were making the boys so uncomfortable up in the cab of the truck, they had to slide the back window shut. They were hearing some things they weren't too comfortable with.
Those boys can't handle us.
Yeah.
Wrestling match.
Yeah.
Oh, it was something. Yeah.
We were all jazzed up after, because it was the end of the last drive. Dallas gave the green light to the guys that had tagged out to go home and get warm. So we were just having like a victory lap, and we kind of got out of hand.
Yeah, Jim and I are. I mean, it was a rainy morning. AJ shot the big buck, and then we had like a 2.5, 3 mile pack out. And by the time we got back to the truck, like we were just shot. It was like 2:00, and the sun comes out, and Dallas is like, "Hey, we don't really have room for you boys on this next hunt. So if you want to just head back to the house and shower up and start drinking, have at it." And we're just like, yes. So Jim and I, we load up in the back of the truck, and my truck was like 2 or 3 miles away. So we're just, driving dirt roads and state forest and just having a freaking riot. So yeah, I'll cherish those memories for the rest of my life. Riding in the back of the pickup truck with my buddy Jim.
For sure.
Oh, that's good. Now, Bill, well,
I appreciate you coming on, and I figured this would be a good one just to have all of us on to kind of BS and just have fun chatting. Whatever comes up, comes up. So, we're today was the 11th and first day of ATA, and Dimitri opens it up with a great a great joke in the morning to get it going, and I was like, oh man, today's gonna be a good day. So we yeah, Billy, what's going on, man? Like, what's new? It's been a little while since we've had a chance to sit down and record and do a podcast together. So what's new, man?
Yeah, it's been, I guess I'm trying to think of when the last time was we were on. I think maybe the last time that I was on with you guys, I probably had just phoned in on a bullhorn. It was probably the last time I was on talking with you guys. But yeah, and that was probably end of last spring, beginning of summer, I'm guessing. So yeah, I mean, nothing has really changed dramatically in my life, or in just the hunting realm of things. As anyone knows who's listening that follows along with us too, I have a podcast myself. And man, we started ours back in 2019. Yeah, I think it was fall of 2019. We started our show, and we totally dove right into it. And I say probably the biggest thing that's changed for me over the last, I don't know, the last 6-8 months is like I've really tried to, cut back a little bit on completely devouring the social media side and trying to produce a shitload of content. And it wasn't so much really coming in the way of my life with work and family, but it was certainly something that was taking time away from those two things, and family most importantly. So I'd say like last spring, summer, like really kind of started backing off a lot of the social media and a lot of the, I'm still using it. I'm active daily, but nowhere's near what I was doing before. And then the same thing with the podcast, just kind of doing it as it comes along. But because at the end of the day, like I'm a hunter, I'm an outdoorsman, I'm a family man. I love sports. I love a lot of things. I'm not just like completely obsessed with just hunting. So yeah, it's kind of been an interesting like 6-8 months, and then going all the way through deer season with just kind of focusing on what's important. And to me, that's getting out when I can, having success when I go out. I'm every time I go out, I'm trying, every once in a while you're not trying to kill, but if I had opportunity this year, I took it. And, I get through this deer season and look back at it and say like, wow, where did it go? But it was super successful to my standards, and my freezer's full, and my family didn't skip a beat. Nothing from hunting season. There was maybe a couple days where there was some stress in the household because, kids were sick or whatever, but we kept the peace, and work was a banger of a fall, and had an incredible run there with what I do for a day job. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a whole bunch of words I just threw at you, but I mean, I've kind of changed a little bit as a person in a way of, what I'm doing with the platform and with everything else. But I think it's relatable to guys in all of our situations. We're all, the four of us on here are pretty similar with where we're at in our stages of our lives with kids and everything. And it's like, you got to kind of take a step back and think about what's truly the most important thing. And, when it comes down to hunting, I don't want my hobby with the podcast to become between me and filling the freezer. So I step back here in the beginning of January and say, hey, I think that this last 6-8 months was pretty sweet, and I'd like to keep going at this pace. So that's what's kind of cooking with me on a high level.
That's great. That's all really good news. And like you said, I know last time that I think we even chatted, you were just saying too how busy you were with work, and it's a good work, hunting, wife, family balance. And it seems like you did that. So that's great. And then Bill, you have 2 kids?
Yeah, I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
So you have 2, Dimitri has 2, Jim and I both have 1. There you go. It's like we all somewhere, we're all very like relatable in those in that realm of things.
Yeah, and I mean, Dimitri, you and I can commiserate in the challenges of having 2. It's a beautiful thing. Like I love it to death, but like you can't just walk away for 3-4 hours because those 2 kids are just going to tear each other apart, and they're going to drive your wife up a wall. And then it doesn't make anything that I'm doing fun because I know she's at home dealing with that. So for me, like that was a big thing for me, was just like kind of realizing like I need to be there. And at some point the kids are going to grow up a little bit more and I'll have more freedom. But right now, like what the hell good is it for me to go out and sit in a blind for 6 hours, and then I come home and she just throws the kids at me and walks out the door? It's like, I want her to be like, honey, thank God you're home. Let's have some dinner or whatever, or maybe I chase her around or something else. But yeah, that's what's important to me. I don't know about you, Dimitri, but that's where my focus has really landed here.
Yeah, and I think this is the first year where I really would take a step back if I felt like I needed to during the season. There was, I think it was after I killed my first doe, which was on a Friday, I was able to sneak out after work and, was able to connect on that first doe. And, an old me would typically, even though it's next day is Saturday, so I would go out in the morning and then go out in the evening, another day to hunt. But, this year I got that doe on Friday and took a step back and said, well, I have one, I have to take care of it. It was going to be a little warmer that day. I said, hey, I'm just going to sleep in, woke up, made the family some breakfast, and, was just hanging around. So, I took that victory and made everyone kind of able to celebrate it a little bit and be present a little bit more. And, I think I did that. I think I did that another time too. I mean, came home a little early from Ohio as well. We both tagged out and made sure I was home I think it was daycare had a, kind of a parents' night. So I was able to be present for those things too. So, even though I got to hunt still quite a bit, there was those little incidents where, I was able to be with the family and meant a lot more for everybody too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that, as fathers that we are in our generation, I think we all reflect on our fathers. And I've had these discussions with my dad. I mean, he realizes that he left he would, if it's deer season, Dad was gone. He's like, weekend, I'm going to deer camp. And it was never even like a second thought about, is that a burden on my mom? And it wasn't anything malicious. Like, they're happily married for, almost 40 years now, but it's like, it just was a different time. And I'm really actually kind of starting to embrace this time we have now, where it's like the fathers are, you kept saying present, Dimitri. I mean, I think when you're present in your kids' lives, like it makes a huge difference in their upbringing. And, I think that's one of the things that stuck with me. And as I'm talking about this kind of change in my focus over the last few months, it's like we kind of get caught up in this social media realm of things where we're trying to chase what other people have. And like, you see all these guys that are out there hunting, 50, 60, 80 days plus a year. And like, you get envious. Like, you can't not be envious of that. Like, we all love this. We would love to be doing it. But in the end, it's like, what's their home life like? Are they happily married, or do they have a great relationship with their kids? Maybe they do. Maybe they're just incredibly like energetic people and they have all the energy in the world and they can be all things to all people at all times. But my guess is there's probably a hole in the game somewhere. And, all of us only have one chance at this. And if I got to look back at it, I don't want to look back and say, man, I wish I would have like gone to Billy's gymnastics class that night instead of going deer hunting for an hour. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to look back at that stuff and wish I didn't miss those things.
Right. Well, I think where, like you said too, Bill, where we're sitting, especially the four of us, like we don't have those TV shows on the Outdoor Channel and all that stuff. And I mean, you could look up some of these guys' net worth and they're in the millions. So
for sure.
You know what I mean? So it's, yeah, I mean, like you just said, would it be cool to go, hey, let's go to Kansas. Hey, let's go to Kentucky. Hey, let's do this and do that. But I mean, if it's not paying the bills and, if we're able to go out once, a trip somewhere for like a week or whatever, have it and come back home, and man, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all see this and we kind of feel like we're like, me and you and Dimitri, like we're putting a lot of energy into this stuff, and you feel like, man, if I'm going to chase it, like I'm going to make this work. And then it's like, and I'm speaking for myself. Like, I'm saying, man, I'm not seeing any more money coming in. I'm seeing a ton of time going out, and like, where is the point here? Like, I've built something, like I have something. I have a following that we have, and we've got, it's not even so much a following. I hate saying that. Like, we've got a core, we've started it local and we've kept it mainly local based and focused. And we've got we've got people that are now coming hunting with us that met us through the podcast, and
That's awesome.
people that are relying on us that are new to hunting, that are asking questions and want to know what guns to buy and what load should they use, what arrows. Like, that's the purpose. Like, that's why we're here. And I see what a lot of these guys have. Like, I had that opportunity to meet Caleb Copeland, the owner of Copeland Creative, and he travels all over the country all year round with John Dudley and Lee and Tiffany. And like, you look at that life and you're like, man, like, that is amazing. And he's living it up. Like, he is all over the place. But the sacrifice, we talked about it when he was on the podcast with us. Like, he's gone for like at times like months on end without seeing his wife and his kids, and then he's 24 hours home, seeing them for 2 days, and then back on the road. And like, you start to see inside of the industry, you start to see inside of what people are doing in order to make it. And he's made it, but like, man, there's a lot of sacrifice there. And like, he's an awesome dude. You can tell that he's passionate about what he does, and that's outstanding. But, the reality starts to set in to like what you're willing to sacrifice to do some of this stuff. And
right,
I'm a deer hunter. Like, that's what I like. I'm sitting here looking at full freezers, and Dimitri's looking at full freezer. Like, my wife can't look at me and say, well, you spent the whole freaking fall and you didn't kill nothing. It's like, hey,
yeah.
I got the meats. So
Jim, how about you? How was that for you this past fall? Because I know like you went back home a lot this well, I shouldn't say back home, like my back home, but you hunted the private club a lot more than you have because you were back on it this year.
Yeah, I got back on the old family club, and it was really a blessing because I was able to. It's only an hour ride, so I'm able to get my hunts in, put in the time I felt like was necessary to try to put myself in a good position to be successful, but without interrupting the household. A lot of the my heart and soul is in a lot of the public land areas that I've hunted over the years, but that's like those are full day events or full weekend events, and that takes a tremendous amount of time and puts a tremendous amount of stress on the household. And her and I opened up lines of communication a lot better this year with, when she gets as she's ready to throw the white flag up, she tells me ahead of time, and we kind of I plan my hunts around how things are going. And also, like what Dimitri and Billy said, I don't want to miss out on key things with daycare. And, my little guy started T-ball and like all this stuff, I don't, those are all key things that I want to be a part of while still balancing, what we're passionate about. So it just all comes down to communication and planning and making the best of the time that you're given.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys think that, because obviously we're not doing this for a job or, the income, but, we've both kind of going on the social media aspect, we've passed posts and different things that people that are doing this for, a lifestyle and income and, their job, but, and some of the things we see on social media, I mean, people have to be shaking their heads, right? Because I mean, if they don't get the follows and the likes and the sponsorships and, the more people that they have involved in their social media, the better they're going to look to bring in money, right? But some of these things that we've seen, we shake our head at, we've, laughed at, and we can't believe that someone would post that. Do you feel like, that's kind of bad for the industry and hunting in general? Because, we do it because we love it. And, some of the things that we've seen people do, it's not that they thought it was the right thing to do or, because they loved or wanted to do it. It's because they knew that that was going to get the social media engagement that they need and they wanted.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to grab that, Jim, or me to answer that.
No, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
I mean, for me, that's a big thing that has turned me off. Once you get to see inside the curtain about how all this stuff works, like, you quickly get to see who the people are, what they're all about, who's legit, who's just doing it because that's what they're trying to sell today. And like, that's life, that's business. Everybody's trying to earn a living. Like, in my life, I could be selling a product today and I lose my job and go work for the competitor and start selling. That's no different. But when you open up your phone and everything is just an ad now, it's like everybody's trying to sell something. It just kind of like turns you off. Like, that's kind of turned me a little bit off to social media. Like, last year I went through and we were following about as many people as were following us. And I went through and it was so many brands and all this stuff. Was when you're starting to build your podcast or build your channel, like you want to try to engage with all these different people and say, hey, like I'm using your product, like I'm passionate about it. And then you start to see how all this is working, and it's like, I don't have tits, I'm really not that good looking, and I don't have a ton of money that I'm sinking into this. So like this is who I am. Like I like to go out and shoot does and 6-pointers. That's probably not very marketable for some of these companies. Yeah. But yeah, and I put a lot of, actually it would have been the fall of 21, I put a lot of time and energy into a particular brand, doing I did pictures for them with a buddy of mine who's a photographer, and I still use the brand. I'm still passionate about it, but I've like really thought that there was an opportunity for me to like work with them, and they were talking that way, and then they just totally ghosted me, which is fine. And then I see the people that they decided to grab onto and start marketing their product. And I'm like, ugh, like those people, they're not even real. Like they're not even real people. Like they're not out there shooting deer and processing them and living the lifestyle. Like they're Insta famous, you know? So I think, but I think we're so hyper focused on this that we become like, we think everyone else is thinking about the same stuff. I have tons and tons and tons and tons of friends and people that I watch on Facebook and stuff. They have no interest, no care, don't pay attention. They don't even know who half these people are. Like they just want to go out and hunt every Saturday and Sunday in November and December, and that's all they care about. So like I think we're very hyper focused on that. I think it's a problem in our lives, but is it a problem to the whole industry? Probably not. Some of these stupid posts, yes. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I'd like to add that, you know, some of the best hunters that I know and best hunters I've ever met are not even active on social media.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the greatest hunts I've ever had in my life have not been documented with a camera, have not been, you know, video recorded or put on a podcast or talked about, you know, like even the things that we did this year, Billy, with the gang was like, you know, that would have made some of the most epic footage and probably some of the greatest content that you could probably put out there.
Yeah.
For certain people. And like, you know, I'm more about being in the present now and enjoying those moments and not having to worry about what everyone else thinks of it. And if I'm able to share it with other people, like on a podcast, or if we happen to grab a couple of pictures, fantastic. But that's not like the main focus anymore.
Right. I think, Billy, you hit the nail on the head with the whole, is it a problem industry wide? And, you know, because like you said, there are people that don't know them, don't care, don't have social media, and actually, get a good bit of knowledge and information from just going into their local shop, you know, whether it be a archery pro shop, whether it be just a gun shop, like, hey, okay, what's the new gun? Hey, what's this? Because I like buying guns. I like buying bows. Hook me up with this. Okay, thanks. I'm going in the woods. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I know when I met up with Mike and 2 summers ago, whatever, and I went out to meet up with our buddy Paul at his shop. Like there was a ton of people flowing in and out that were, you know, older than me, you know, either late 40s, you know, early 50s, 60s, that, you know, they're not using social media, but then they came in and shot the shit like the best of them, you know? So it's, yeah, I don't know. I agree with everything you said. And it's, you know, I feel like we've obviously too have taken a step back with posting and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's not what it was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, but it's funny though, when you see like newer individuals starting up and messaging and like asking to get to certain things or like whatever. And it's like, oh man, I don't know how to reply to that without kind of being like, you know,
well,
my remarks. It's just like, hey, just be you. That's all I usually say. Just have fun with it.
Those new up and coming podcasts, Jeremy, have no clue the work that you and Billy have put in to get to where you guys are right now.
Well, it's not even the podcast. It's like just I think it's more so of like products or whatever like that. Like, you know, like obviously, yeah, like I had the opportunity to work with Tethered and do, but like those were relationships like that, like that whole my connection with Tethered was a freaking like accident. Like that wasn't a thing where anybody really sought anybody out. It was just like people talking and a relationship kind of clicked. Right. Like they had nothing to do with like, hey, I want to do this. Like it was none of that. It was just some random click and that's it. So it's like, so if someone wants advice on that, like I can't give that because it was just random.
Well, you have to make yourself, you have to be a marketable individual, and you have to be approachable and be yourself and be real. Like I think that's we're now the old guys, like in this world that's moving so fast. Like we both started our platforms back in that 2018, 2019, started our pages, and then the podcast started growing, and we were right there. We're right kind of with each other throughout this whole process. And it's been fun to watch that. But like you get 100+ episodes in, like you've put some freaking work in, and you've talked, you figure out what works, what doesn't work. And I don't know what works or what doesn't work as far as what gets people to download. It seems like if it's not something that has in this region, if it's not something that has to do with the Adirondacks or a big woods buck, no one really, it doesn't hit anything. Like it doesn't hit an algorithm, doesn't go anywhere. But you know, I see the, like to your point, you see these new businesses starting up, and kids are just, and they're kids, they're just dumping money into Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and it's just like spamming all. It's like you pull up their pictures and you're like, what are you? It's like you look like you literally just rolled out of bed, and your pictures are terrible. Like there's no effort. Like if you go back and look at the stuff that, like, you're very good with a camera, and you do great work with that, and your pictures are beautiful, and like that's marketable. Like that's interesting to companies. They see that and they're like, oh cool, I'll share that and I'll post it. But like some of this stuff, like they're just totally unaware to what they're putting out there, and that makes them look, that just devaluates them immediately as soon as their content's put out there.
Yeah. I think I would say like my biggest gripe, and you know, I'll be the first one to admit, like, you know, I don't stack deer like you guys do. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm still growing and learning and all that type of stuff as an individual and as a hunter. But I see certain people and like you click on it or whatever, because it's like you said, it gets flooded, whether it's like these videos, these reels, and I'm like, oh wow, like it's cool. You know what I mean? It's cool editing, and you see what they're shooting, and like you click on them, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like an asshole, and like without it being like, I'm not talking down, because hunting's hard, but like if you have in your thing, like you shoot for morel targets and you shoot for this and that, but like I just threw morel targets out there just because I'm looking at a morel target, but like you put that in your bio, but then like you scroll through and there's like no pictures of you hunting. There's no dead deer. You know what I mean? Like not that you have to kill deer, but
yeah,
I don't like, I don't understand that type of stuff. And that's the business side of things. Like you make cool reels, you have their product in it. Like there you go. Like you have a chance to do that. So, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I guess then have at it. But I think though too, like a lot of people, you know, that are like reasonable individuals, I think could see through that stuff.
Yeah,
too.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of the problem is also a lot of these companies in the industry too, right? You know, they're picking who they want to sponsor or, you know, partner with too, which is kind of encouraging, you know, the social media aspect too, right? You know, if you're not big on social media, you don't have a lot of followers, then you're not really a nobody. So you're not going to get that sponsorship or, you know, that company to work with you. So if some of these companies would just take a deeper dive of who they're going to sponsor and who they're going to work with, might, you know, kind of put it as social media is not a big factor in that decision, you know, maybe there'd be less kind of stupid posts out there, you know, just to get that engagement, because people are going to post what's going to get the likes and what's going to get the follows, and you know that's what's going to make them look good.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that, you know, you look at the 2019, 2020, like those companies like Sitka, like First Light somewhat, not so much, but Sitka was one where you heard stories of like Oh yeah, like they don't pay you anything, but they just send you like $2,000 worth of gear to like wear and take pictures with, and like you're a Sitka athlete, but it's like they just sent you a bunch of stuff. Like there's value there, but like so the whole market just gets flooded with that, and then these companies, as far as that business model, like they give out all this free product. Why am I going to go? I have a bin full of Sitka gear that is awesome gear. It's not going to fail me. If it does, you send it back and they fix it or replace it. Like you kind of screwed yourself because you just gave all of your stuff away, which is high-end price point, and then everyone knows that either you can get it for free or you can buy it at a supreme discount. So then how much are they really selling when you go to Sportsman's Warehouse or Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever your, Shields or whatever your store is locally, Cabela's, yada, yada. You know what I mean? Like, so these companies just like fill the market with that. All these people are wearing this stuff, and you're like, how in the hell did you afford like all of that gear that you're wearing right now? It's because you got it either for free or at a supreme discount, which is great, but it's just not relatable to the guy who grinds Monday through Friday and then wants to go out and hunt like 5 times a year. And that's the majority of people. The majority of hunters are not logging their hunts and knowing how many days they were out there, and they're not doing this 12 months out of the year. It's just a hobby, that's something that they do love, but they aren't going to spend $3,000 on equipment every year. It's a very small number of people that are doing that.
It's those memes from that we always see during rifle season when, what is it, the guy from The Office, when he's like all wearing his hoodie and he has like his hands like this, whatever, all acting all thuggish, and he's like, you spend months chasing your deer with the bow, and this guy first day kills it with the rifle or whatever.
That's exactly right.
Yep. No, that's good stuff, man. I don't know. It's funny because two former students of mine, their family has some huge hunting heritage under them, and they just started like following us or heard about us, like finally like realized that like Dimitri and I and Jim and Mike and that we have this platform going. So like it's cool to hear more locally. And when I was talking to their dad, I was like, yeah, I really would like us to, kind of like what you guys got going on, Bill, like have a little bit more of like a group, or like you said, not necessarily a following, but just like a more of a presence locally. Just that way people can hear about it and stuff like that. And that's probably like, honestly, like a goal for us is to try to do that. Earlier this year, I did like a Bellefonte local outdoor thing, and had a couple people, but I don't know, it's a challenge, I guess, to try to grow locally when it's such a big and kind of weird area that we live in, where it is a huge hunting area, but then it's also not, because like the good for the having such a big hunting area is, obviously a lot of people are interested in hunting, but the bad part about that is it's like, well, people want to talk, but people don't want to talk.
Right.
Yeah, like most of the people hunters in Pennsylvania aren't like the new age hunters either. They're all very old school. Yeah. They don't really know about podcasts and the latest gear. They don't watch YouTube reviews. They've been hunting this. They hunt the same tree in the same ladder stand that their grandpappy built, in 1960, and they have a good time doing it. And they wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Right.
So
right,
it's hard to
right. You can't fault them either.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, and I think that's where if you focus on that, like that's what matters to people, and getting back to the basics, getting back to what you love. Like I just so this year kind of pivot a little bit, I guess, but similar discussion. Like I don't know if do you guys keep track of your sits, like how many, like when you sit, the dates, the morning, night, spot, deer you saw? Do you guys keep track of that stuff?
I do, yes.
I did a little bit more this year than I have in years past.
Do you want to know what my reasoning is for it?
Yeah, go for it. I want to know.
I do it so I can show my wife proof of how much I actually hunted. So I can say, here, this is your perception and this is reality. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah. So I hunted way more last year, and I actually can't find my spreadsheet, and I may not have actually kept one last year. I thought I did, but I don't know. But this year I ended up it's fun to look back at it because in the past years, I spent a lot of time like doing all day sits and like really grinding it out. And obviously it depends on how your season falls and how your success is. I never really had to do that during archery because I shot my buck on October 14th and I just didn't have to do that. But it was interesting the way that my season played out because I was able to spend more time like just going with the flow and hunting when the weather was right. And I only hunted 23 times total, and that's either, a sit or an all day. So if I went in the woods, that counted as going out.
Got it.
So I only hunted 5 mornings, which is lower than I would say normal. I hunted 5 mornings, 10 evening sits, and then 8 were all day. So almost a good portion of my hunting in those all days were all during gun season and all still hunting. I didn't do any all day sits anymore. I didn't ever sat in a tree stand for more than 3 or 4 hours at the most. Everything was, and if I was in the woods for the day, I was literally moving all day long. And that, like, I don't know if you guys hunt a lot like that, but that is just my favorite. Like, that has become my favorite way to deer hunt, especially obviously gun, it's much better when you got a gun in your hand to do that. But man, I just hit the ground running come gun season and just covered a shitload of ground, saw a lot of new habitat, a lot of new area, saw a lot of cool things. And it's my favorite now. I can't stop thinking about just getting in the woods and just going with no agenda. I mean, do you guys ever do that? I guess I don't know if I ever hear you guys really talk about I know you do a lot of mobile hunting, but
Dimitri, you go ahead. You could.
I think a lot of in archery, especially early on, I'm kind of going with the flow. There's a lot of times where the weather might not be right or the wind direction might not be the best for some of my, I would say, prime spots or, historical spots. So, I will just kind of dive into a new piece or a piece I've scouted. And, I do that a lot in the earlier season, which I've had success, doing that too. And again, I think I've talked about it before, is I think when you do that, you kind of look of what's in front of you a lot more. If you're in a new piece and you didn't you e-scouted it maybe a little bit, but you haven't put boots on the ground, you look at the detail. What's the fresh sign? You finding a fresh rub or scrape? Are you seeing where the acorns are dropping? So you pay attention a little bit more, I feel like, if you do that. And I had pretty good success this year with that early on. So yeah, I think it can be beneficial sometimes.
How about you, Jim?
I guess to back up a little bit, I had 9 all day sits, 3 half days, and 1 was not even a half day. It was like 2.5 hours. And that includes my trip with the boys out, the public land trip at the end of the year.
Oh, so how many? So total, you were like 15-ish hunts.
15-ish, yeah,
Wow.
15 and a quarter, which sounds like a lot.
Don't tell my wife.
Which sounds like a lot, but I actually had way more than that last year. Yeah. I had. Let's see. I'll pull up my paper and work here quick.
And that includes your trip to New York as well, right?
That includes my trip to New York as well. Yes. Wow. Last year I had 13 all day sits, 5 half days, and 2 quarter days. So,
and I mean, there's a huge difference right there that we like the opportunity we have in New York compared to what you guys have in Pennsylvania, gaining those Sundays, and then our seasons are about the same in length, but we don't have the closure that you guys do there for that 1 week. And like, that's a big difference. I mean, you really can't compare deer hunting in New York to deer hunting in Pennsylvania because you guys just don't have the opportunity. You don't have the tags. You don't have the deer density. It's just a totally different world.
Well, think about it like this, Billy. When I came out with the gang, right, that was 3 days, right? 3 days of hunting. When I went up with Donnie and the boys up in New York, that was Saturday, Sunday. That was 2 days. That's 5 days out of that 15 days right there. So it means I only had 10 days in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't take off any days. You just hunted.
I just hunted. I hunted every weekend that I was able to hunt. Yeah. And that's it. I was literally the weekend warrior like everybody else is. And you know, the hindsight is that, you know, I wish I could have had more, but I capitalized on the time that I was given. I filled my freezer. So I can't really say that it was definitely a successful season for sure, given the short amount of time. It's just, we all wish we could have more time, but that's, you know, that's the nature of the beast.
You need to tell Brock to give you more time off.
Sexy
I utilized most. Go ahead.
The guy shoots tack with you, us, and won't even give you time off to hunt.
He's trying to put together. He wants to go hunt hogs. That's what he wants to do.
I bet he does.
That's his next goal. He wants to go hunt hogs in like March or April this year. That's like his next thing. That's a story for another day.
I was gonna say let's skip tack this year and go hunt hogs then.
Yeah, that's what he's getting at. That's kind of what he's getting at. Yeah,
down with that.
Yeah, I would be too.
Where, like Tioga Ranch or something, or where is he thinking?
Yeah, well, he was looking at Tennessee, Virginia, kind of. You know, he's looking at one of those outfitter type setups.
Yeah,
where you go for a weekend.
If you ever want a good hog hunt story, ask Ian, who we just had on the podcast, about his hog hunt. It will blow your mind.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
It is a good one.
See, Brock's just trying to, and if he listens to this, he's going to get a kick out of it because he's. So I got him into hunting a couple years ago, and he's still yet to kill anything. So and he's stubborn because he asked for advice in small bits, but he won't ever fully listen because he wants to feel like he did it all himself.
Yeah, 2 days before archery season, Jaybird, you gave me the wrong stuff for tether.
Yeah, he's throwing his gear together last minute, and he's just. He tries hard and his heart's in the right place, but I wish he would just let his guard down a little bit and let me help him a little more. But hey, whatever, to his their own. But that's why he kind of wants to do a hog hunt because he feels like he can go out there and just kind of, you know, lay something down for the first time and get the experience.
Bloodthirsty.
Yeah, that'd be
pretty much. Yeah. So I derailed that conversation. I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
Just like how many days you were able to get out and, you know, your time spent, like, because this actually brings up another good pivot to regarding that, because like myself, Jim, this is a conversation you and I seem to have like weekly, but it's one of those where I'm in the same boat. I was about 15 to like maybe 20 something, including like late season stuff, like not a lot. But I still feel like to go back on like just going out in the woods and kind of going with the flow, Bill, like, and Dimitri, like for me this year, when I hunted a lot back in Northeast PA, kind of put all my eggs in that basket, and I was on deer a lot. Just the closing opportunities didn't present themselves, but at the same time, I was in it. It wasn't a lot of sits where I was like, man, I didn't see anything today. Like nothing came by. Like I didn't have a lot of those, so it was kind of like it was a win, but not really a win, if that makes sense, right? But I still feel like, and Jim, this is where I want you to kind of chime in with, even though I was on deer early October, that type of stuff, man, it really still doesn't get going really hard in certain spots that I hunt until Halloween-ish. You know what I mean? Like that late, like I know people will say, man, when you get that first cold front in like or middle of October, like it could be dynamite. Like, yeah, it 100% can be, right? You got to have that spot. You have to have that deer in that area, obviously. But man, like where I've kind of always either found or scouted, especially this year where I've been all on a quote unquote more mature deer, it still wasn't ramping up until Halloween. And like our Timmy Tom, that, you know, obviously our good friends, he rarely hunts October. Like he's out scouting a lot more. And then he has that full 3 weeks off that he obviously saves for in November. Like I can't do that, but at the same time, I could save a little bit more time, hunt that end of October more and November more during the rut, rather than being like, hey, it's October 16th. It's still the low is going to be 47. Like, great. Like we're going backwards to saying with our families, that could be a great time where, you know what, I'm going to just spend the day with you guys. If the evening you guys aren't doing anything and I could go out maybe for an hour or 2 hours, like cool, that might be a great thing to do. But like, kind of like even Dimitri, how you were saying, you know, years past, we'd be like, it's the morning, I'm going out, you know, but that's where I want to, for me personally, I want to go towards like putting my now put my eggs in the basket of like, let's wait until the end of October, November, go out scouting a little bit more in November. Like obviously bring the bow in hand, but I'd rather do that, try to find sign, locate deer, rather than just be like, I'm going to go sit here today and maybe something will happen. So I don't know. That's Jim, because this is something you and I've talked about.
Yeah, it's about being more strategic with your hunts, planning it better. I think, the areas that you and I have hunted over the years now, we have pretty much dialed. It's about just fine tuning it and getting in there at the right time and knowing when that right time is, identifying the sign. So we just got to be more strategic. I mean, it's kind of neat to track your days because it's kind of a fun challenge to try to fill your freezer in the least amount of sits as possible, right? Wouldn't that be a definition of a successful hunter?
Yeah.
So, that's neat that way. I would like to see, my hunting time go from, 10 days in Pennsylvania to like 20 days in Pennsylvania. Now that I'm sitting here saying this out loud, I'm going to have a conversation with my wife because that is like, I wait all year for 10 days. It's ridiculous.
I know. I didn't mean to bring anything up to cause any trouble in the D'Agostino house, but
I'll say, go ahead, Dimitri.
I was just going to say, I won't calculate how many sits I've had and been out in the woods this year. So it's probably quite a bit.
I was going to say, Dimitri, you only had like 4 sits, like 4 deer and 4 sits or something like that.
No, you guys probably had less deer, but better percentage than I did. Cause I still was out there quite a bit, but no, I'm fortunate that even though I'm trying to spend time with the family and to tone it down, I still pretty fortunate to be able to do a lot of sits and, archery, rifle, late season. I still get to go out quite a bit.
It comes down to like where you have access and property and stuff to hunt too, right? Whether it be public or private or what have you. If it's, Billy's got the farm down the street that he's able to go to. Dimitri, you said that you've had some, relatives that have some property nearby. Jeremy lives right next to state game lands. I have a little bit of a drive for most of the stuff I have to get to, but that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yep. And I've never, the buck I shot this year, it's the earliest I've ever shot a buck. And every buck I've ever shot with my bow has always been in those last few days of October. And that's because that's where I was spending all my time during archery. And it just, the weather lined up. Like we've had great success here in New York right around, it's Columbus Day, right? That's in October. Okay. It's Columbus Day. We almost always get a decent front right around Columbus Day, or is that Indigenous people? Am I offending anybody? Sorry, I drank almost a gallon of water today. I'm saying some stupid shit. Okay, yeah. Call me Christopher.
Well, you can't say master anymore either.
No,
so
you're right. But we like historical experience. Like I've had a lot of my friends shoot deer in right around the 15th of October. And then it always does seem to die off a little bit. And, I went out and it's just, I think it goes back to the point you guys are making of just capitalizing the opportunities you have because you don't know, none of the 4 of us have properties where we know we've got multiple 120-inch deer. Like you might have one. You might have one. Like we had a couple giant bucks during the summer and you get all excited about it and then they disperse. And you might get lucky and see one of them. We've got the one big buck on our property that he's going to be 5 now. We know he made the season. But, like, he was almost – I saw him the night I shot my buck on the 14th. He didn't come down to my end of the field. I shot the one that came down to my end of the field. I had that opportunity where I was like, do I shoot this deer or not? And it's like he's 30 yards broadside. It's the deer that I said I wanted to shoot. Like, just shoot the damn deer. Like, what are you doing? Because I had no guarantee that I would have another shot opportunity, a decent buck. And you just don't know how your season's going to play out. So how many guys out there, this goes, Dan Johnson, Nine Fingers Chronicle, he's been posting those videos of all those bucks that he's finding the videos of and saying, he's like, I am pissed at myself for not shooting this deer. And it's like, shoot the damn deer. Like, if you have the opportunity and it's a good, clean shot and you want to kill it, just kill the deer. That's why we're out there. Like we don't have these managed properties where we've got huge bucks around every tree. It's just not the way it is in our neighborhoods.
Well, I'd like to weigh in on this. You know, if you,
Would you?
Get him, Jim. I know you're getting ready for it.
I've been to New York State and toured the luxurious lodges and garages of the Pertinier clan. And I can tell you, there's a lot of big bucks on those walls. So
there
say
is
that there's a limit of 120 inch. No, I'm only kidding. Those boys have been successful, and to do it in the properties that they do it is pretty incredible. So I like to bust their chops because we live in Pennsylvania, and we shoot half horn 3-pointers down here, but they work just as hard for it up there.
As do we. It's, I mean, nothing makes me happier than to come down there and within 6 hours have a buck on the ground that would have been a good one next year. But that's just.
Billy calls his shot every year. You typically first day, first drive.
Yeah.
Billy's cracking one off. The 300 Win Mag.
No,
Cannon.
It's a 7 mag, Jim.
Oh, 7 millimeter
yeah.
mag. Sorry.
Trigger shoots the 300.
That's right. Okay.
I'm not man enough. He told me I'm not man enough to shoot the 300. But it's those opportunities, like the buck I shot in PA. It was, that whole scenario went down in it couldn't have been more than 10 seconds. I was on a finger ridge, heard deer crashing to my right. I peeked over, I seen him running, and I just stood there for just a brief second. And I'm like, I should check the other side of this ridge because I'm right at the end of the point. And it's only maybe 10 yards wide. I'm like, these deer could easily just be wrapping right around this point. And it's pine trees on top, moss, quiet. And I just took a few steps over and popped my head over. I'm leaning up. This is a hot tip. And I was watching a video the other day, guys doing deer drives. What you got to find every time you're in the woods doing any still hunting or a drive, I'm always trying to find where's the next tree I'm getting to. So I have a good rest to be up against to be firm to make a shot. And I was watching a video yesterday, sidebar, and these guys were just like freehand, just shooting all over the place and missing deer. And I'm like, and there's literally, they have their backs to a tree. I'm like, step back, brace on the tree, and you are going to be rock solid when you make that shot. But I went from that one side of that to the other, and I popped my head over. I'm up against a tree, and I look over, and the first thing I see is a deer broadside, 60, 80 yards, see the beams, and I'm like, and just on his shoulder shot. It all happened so fast. If I would have hesitated for 1 second, that deer's moving, and I'm never getting a shot at him. Like, it doesn't happen. It's the only buck I had a shot at the whole weekend I was down there, walking 20 miles or whatever we walked. So it's just like capitalizing the opportunities. That's the biggest challenge. All of us spend the time. All of us get deer in front of us. It's just you got to kill. You got to learn to do it. You got to get good at it. And you're going to miss your shots. You're going to miss your opportunities. You're going to step on that stick and spook that deer in front of you. But you got to learn to do those things. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm getting there. I'm not shooting big bucks every year, but I'm shooting deer, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah. I would say, like, again, kind of a whole nother pivot, because it was like on my mind when we were talking about like the time accolading to go out and hunt and how many days. And I would say, like, for me, since I was traveling back at home, my biggest takeaway was seeing all the sign during rifle season when I was going in there, walking around, because I wasn't doing that during archery season, because I was pulling all day sits, where I was pulling like a half day sit here, and I knew the area I was kind of going to go into and maybe scout my way in a little bit, but I knew the vicinity. Does that make sense? And when during the rifle season, when it's, bright as day out, now I'm like walking through here, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this sign. Like, look at this. Like I just maybe missed it or whatever. So that was the hard part, because it was 2.5 hours away. So I didn't have the time to be like, hey, after work, I'm going to go drive home and go scout. You know what I mean? And I didn't do that here where I live. And that is something this spring and summer I would like to do a little bit more of, and have some spots here for kind of like I said, those early Saturdays during, October, maybe come hunt here and save those spots that I know back at home, like historically, or, doing a little bit of scouting during the preseason too, back at home at times, just to verify and make sure. But yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from how many days and my struggles from this past year with that. So kind of wrap that up, I guess. What, Billy, we just wrapped up talking a little bit about out of state stuff. And obviously you've hunted a crap ton out of various states, going to Colorado and coming to PA. And what other states have you been able to hunt in?
That's it. Yeah, Pennsylvania and Colorado are my two where I've frequented.
Do you do any points for any other state or wish to get anywhere else?
So I'm into Iowa this will be my 4th year coming up, putting in for Iowa. Arizona, I gotta get back. I think I know I missed last year, so I think I've got a couple points for Arizona. But like for me, like we've all heard the discussions about the point thing. It's like how many places, like how many years are we all really going to have to go on? Like I'm not going to do a trip every year. It's just not feasible with everything. So it's like you're going to have all these points for all these things in all these states. You're spending all this money when it's like that's why I've fallen in love with Pennsylvania, and we've got, Vermont and Maine, like Ohio's within driving to, Dimitri went out there. It's like we have a lot of these areas where we can go and do our own adventures without having to just like invest all this money and all of this time and resources to, drive across the country and hope to God that there isn't somebody in the area that you're hoping to go hunt. Like you guys have experienced that. I've experienced that. I love the Western adventures. It's made me a better hunter at home, like dramatically, because I've learned to look for where to look for things. I learned, how the thermals work, and it just makes your brain work you're looking at this bigger scale, and then you can come home and look at something smaller and put the pieces together. It's made me a better hunter. But I think that's the big thing. Like if somebody isn't in that game yet and hasn't started putting in for points, I would definitely encourage those people to say, hey, like, can you go to your neighboring state and go hunt some public land and get some experience on what it's like to leave your house or your cabin and go hunt somewhere completely strange? Because you can invest years of money and time into preparing for that hunt to go out west, and it could be exactly what you're not expecting it to be. That's just my thoughts on that.
Let me ask you about Iowa. So this year will be 4 points. Do you want to try to pull with 4, or are you going to go with 5?
It depends on my buddies here. We've all been putting in. So, we've been in this rhythm since 2017 of every other year we've done a Western hunt. So the conversations are kind of starting now between myself and AJ and Brian and Tard and that's our main core group of guys that travels together. And what do we want to do a trip this year? Who wants to go where? Do we want to do? We've done muzzleloader, elk and deer in Colorado, and that's something that we all love to do. And if you pick certain units, you can almost do it without even using a point. So we kind of like that idea because the muzzleloader is something we're all confident with, and I'd much rather carry a muzzleloader than carry a bow. I mean, I've done one full archery hunt and one half archery hunt out west. I shot my mule deer in 2017 and then went with the bow after elk. And like, I'm not a call. Like, I don't know. Like, if I had more time and more experience, maybe I could have the confidence to go out there with a bow and get in range. But like, you go out there, when I was out there in 21, it's like we were seeing elk every day, but they were in places that you physically cannot get. Like, you can't get there. Like, Aaron Snyder might be able to get there and risk his life of dying and falling off a cliff. That's not in my agenda, So like, I'm looking over there and seeing, it's like, wow, there's the herd. Like, there's a couple really nice bulls in there, but it's like, we're just going to sit over here for a while and watch and listen and see if they move. Cause there's not a lot that I have the talents and the skills to do to get after them. I know there's people that do it, but it's a pretty hard to attain thing to shoot an elk with your bow. It's extremely difficult. So I'm all about those high percentages. If I'm going to take that trip, I'm going to go high percentage. But to answer your question, Iowa's probably not this year. I'm probably end up having more points than what I need to have to draw Iowa when we actually decide we're going to go to Iowa. It'll probably be in a couple of years, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think because I'm in the exact same point as you. This year will be 4 for me, and next year I already have 2 points for Kansas, and this year I would like to pull a Kansas tag this year. So kind of talking to the guys about, you have a chance with 0 points, obviously, to pull it. And I know Tim has 2 points as well, and he wants to go. So I know he's like already in. So it's just a matter of who else wants to try to put in for it and go and when exactly. So we're tossing some ideas around for certain times and dates and stuff like that. So just that way, if like Dimitri is really interested and wants to do it, or Jim, and that way we could kind of come up with like these 2 kind of slots are where we're kind of looking and thinking as far as when to go. So we're going to try to nail it down, because I think that is April 1st through the 28th for Kansas.
Is the entry timeline?
Yeah. Yep. So, and it's cheap. I think for a point for theirs like $28. I mean, the tag's expensive. The tag's like $400.
But you don't have to buy the license to get a point, right?
No,
Okay.
That is just it's just like Iowa. You just put in whatever the point. Now, obviously, Iowa's what, $50 or $60, but
yeah, and that's where like Arizona's a killer, because you got to buy the license and the points. In Colorado now, you buy the license and the points, and it's just like, the money just starts to become, it's like, so if I'm gonna be buying points, I might as well be trying to go hunt every other year, every couple years, just so I can utilize the money I'm investing into it, because it's like you're doing it, But that's where it's like and I've heard more discussion about it, and I think there's more podcasts coming out, Northeast, East Coast guys, where it's like we can go to the Adirondacks, we can go to Vermont and Maine and hunt black bears, and you can try to get a moose tag, you can try to get an elk in Pennsylvania. It's a far shot to get it, but it's like there's adventure here, like.
Yep. Paul, the guy that I was telling you that runs that B&B archery up in New York, that's real good friends with Mike. He pulled on his very first time drawing a moose tag up in Maine.
No shit.
And it's like I think they gave out 3 tags or 2 tags to non-residents, and he was one of them. And so I guess for that, I don't know the exact rules, so like please don't quote me on it, but you need to have someone else to be or been something on your tag, so like as for like a follow-up shot or something
right.
like that. Yeah. So Paul went and Paul shot, and I think he didn't have like another shot or was like reloading or something, and his brother was like, I'm on him, and like Paul was like waiting for him to shoot like second on this moose. He goes, and he's like, what's going on? And he finally looked over at his brother. He goes, he was like canting his whole body. He was basically balancing on one leg and shaking like a leaf. And the reason why he was doing that was because he was trying to balance himself to stop shaking. But the way Paul tells the story, it's pretty funny and comical, but yeah, it's just,
so they didn't kill the moose is what you're saying.
No, they did.
Oh, they did.
He killed it, but there was no follow-up shot because his brother was shaking like a dog shit and razor blades on one leg.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was pretty crazy stuff. So, and we talked about that on the last podcast too, Dimitri, when we said like there's so much around us that like you saying, like that's a huge put on a pack and you're hiking, right? Like you don't have to go to Colorado, to Idaho for that. And I mean, I'm just going to be frank, like financially, time wise, I don't know, just time, like those 2 big things, financially and time. I just don't know. And it's kind of put I don't want to say a bitter taste in my mouth, but it's kind of weakened the desire to go out west and do those type of hunts. Like my ultimate quote unquote whitetail hunt is obviously Iowa, like that in Kansas. I really want to do one day. And, hopefully within the next couple of years, they're going to happen. But then after that, I would rather us go to New York. I would rather us try to do, like you said, go to hunt some black bear in high Northeast. Like, I don't know. I would just rather go to Maryland than put all that time, money, and effort going out to Colorado, where a lot of people are obviously going to do it and maybe have success, but it doesn't juice me up like maybe a couple of years ago it did.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And it's interesting, right? Like that was all the hype, and everybody was talking about it. Like, gotta go west. And you did it. We've done it. And it's like, my favorite hunt is still going to Pennsylvania for 3 days. Like
Yeah.
it's the best. Jim talked about it when he was on telling about his buck story. It's like, it's the best. And you can get, doesn't matter if you got 20 guys like we had, or you have 3 people, like rent an Airbnb. You don't need to own a cabin. You don't have to have all this stuff. It's like split an Airbnb for $400 for a weekend, and that's a lot. It was for us. We had 3 houses rented. It was $160 a guy for 3 nights. And then you buy your license for $120 or whatever. And you buy some food and beer. And it's like, you're into a 3-day hunt, kick-ass backwoods adventure for like under $500. It's like, where are you going? You go to Colorado, like you're into that for, by the time you get done with gear and tags and everything, dude, it's $2,000. Like easily. You can't do it for less than that. I mean, anybody that tells you can, you're not counting all the things that you're spending money on to get prepared for that hunt. Like, it's freaking expensive to go on a Western trip if you want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, and tags out west keep going up for non-residents every year.
Yeah.
As you guys are talking, Brock has been texting me nonstop with screenshots of different hog hunts.
Is he listening? Is that why? Is he?
I think he is. I have to ask him. But he found a 2-day hog hunt in North Carolina. 2 nights, lodging included, 1 to 8 hunters, 2 hogs included per person. The only thing you got to pay for is your own meals. All right, it's $800.
It's not bad.
Well, we have family in North Carolina. Dimitri.
So and that $800 that includes your license and the whole shit. So
wow.
I mean, that right there, like you just said, you spend a couple $100. It's a 7-hour drive from where we live in Pennsylvania, and you get yourself a hog or 2 and have yourself an adventure.
Is Brock painting his toenails, or
he might be?
Oh, beauty toe. It's a little cold out there.
Jim, when you said we could get a couple of hogs, I've had a couple of hogs in college.
Yeah, I've had a couple of hogs.
Couple slump busters. Yeah. If anybody that doesn't understand the reference of beauty toe needs to go back and listen to our podcast from Total Archery Challenge and was that 2021? Yeah. There's a bunch of inside jokes that will live in infamy from that podcast.
100%.
And I do not apologize for my antics and language and things that I did and said in that podcast. I do not apologize.
You're very insensitive.
Yeah. SSR.
Oh my gosh, awesome. So, Bill, what else do you have? Go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Are you guys thinking about, like, in your area? Is there a lot? Is there much for like outdoor shows or like activities and things like that where you guys can engage with people locally and go to that stuff?
Yes and no.
Obviously, you have the big outdoor show in Harrisburg, but that's a monstrosity of an event.
Yeah, that's 11 days. It's actually pretty cool. Some guy messages us a lot on Facebook, which I love because it's just so cool to get back and forth with people. And he asked if we were going to have a booth there this year. And I was like, not this year. maybe a couple of years that'd be cool, but not this year. But there's some locally, like there's some, like when I say locally, within 25 minutes, sometimes they have them. I would like to maybe do it just to get out there a little bit more, again, just to, network, if anything, just to say, hey, like, check us out. And I don't know, we've always been open to hunting with other people. If people have land that need deer taken off their land, Dimitri and I are not shy about doing something like that. Right. So I don't know. How about you, Jim? As your furnace is running in my ear real loud.
That's not my furnace.
What is it?
No, I don't know what that is.
Well, it's better now.
I thought it was Billy's, to be honest, but
could be Billy's.
Don't put that on me.
It's probably Billy's.
He's like, don't talk to me. Billy, so we talked about it the other day and on one of the podcasts about your event that you guys always do at the end of July. Are you guys like married to that end of July date for your big Shed Fest kind of wrap up?
For Shed Fest or the beer event?
The beer event. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna do the 30th of July again. What is that? That's a conflict for you, isn't it?
Well, as maybe not. So like I know for TAC, it's always a conflict.
Oh,
It's like because of for PA, because my daughter's dance recital is always that Sunday, but I don't know what our goal is or plan is for TAC this year, but
I think we should let's air that out quick. Let's air it out. Are we going to TAC or are we not going to TAC?
I was voting probably not going.
I'm okay. Myself. I'm okay with not going. I'm assuming Billy and the Pertinier boys don't want to go this year.
What's on my radar is going to. Did you guys hear about Huntstock? You know what that is?
Is that that one? Is that in Northeast?
Yeah.
Or no, that's the one in Massachusetts.
It's in Massachusetts, yeah.
Okay.
And he did it last year, and it looked like it was a pretty cool event, and he's planning it again for this year, and it's the second weekend of. It's like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Might be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like the 13th, 14th, 15th of August, and I really am gonna try to. That's what one I want to go to, because it's just people like us and Pat there that puts it together. He's trying to have it be highlighting content creators. So like you guys and ourselves, like he wants podcasts, YouTubers. He wants us to be the animals at the zoo. Like people are there to see us, not see some, hunting brand that's got this big booth and stuff. Like he wants it to be about the creators. And there was some great stuff that happened there last year, and that's on my radar. It's something different and something I'd like to go to.
Yeah,
you got to come past me, Billy. You got to pick me up on the way.
Yeah, we'll meet you. We'll meet halfway. How about that?
Yeah, because the only reason why I asked about the July thing was because this past July, well, one, I was out with Tethered and Montana. That was the Montana weekend, but they're not doing all the tax this year. They're only doing certain ones, Michigan and PA. But during that time frame, my daughter had she did a play, and I know she wants to do it because this year it's Little Mermaid. So I know she's going to be doing that. And I told Jim, I said, if you're heading up, I was going to tell Dimitri, like, what we'll do is if he's free that weekend and I'm free that weekend, like Dimitri and I, we would just drive like straight across, meet Jim somewhere, like probably my dad's, or no, you would have to come.
Oh, you're straight south of us. So
yes, Jim, you would just come to us and we would drive straight up then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of been working on something here with my wife. We're looking for like a little breeding getaway, if you will. We'll just call it.
We were all thinking it, Jim.
So we were gonna find an Airbnb somewhere up that way. We were kind of looking at maybe driving into, because she hasn't really been to Buffalo much. I've been up there quite a bit with buddies that have season tickets and whatever. So I wanted to take her through town, maybe drive a little further into the and see Niagara Falls and whatever, and just kind of bounce around to Airbnbs and obviously make our way to the Pertinier Beer Day before we head home. So that's kind of like my plan, but you're welcome to come along, Jared. Just when the RV's rocking.
Yeah. Stay outside. Yeah, so we are going to do the dates. We're going to do that. It's going to be the 30th, which is a Sunday of July. Nice. So that'll be it'll be our fourth beer event that we've done with Windy Brew, which is a brewery right up the road. My buddy's the brewer there. And each year it's gotten progressively bigger. And, we're the whole point of the event is to raise money for conservation, or for both for conservation and for nonprofit. So the Venison Donation Coalition is the group that we've been raising money for. That's a nonprofit. And then on the conservation end, we've been raising money with our local NDA chapter. So that's been a lot of fun engaging with them. And I've found that to be a very rewarding experience, engaging with these local groups and trying to, put a little bit of time and energy into conservation and helping out locally, which is something I'm going to be spending a lot of time on in the next few months, of trying to figure out what I can do this year to make better use of my time. That's a whole nother conversation that you could go down, but conservation, that's very similar to what we were talking about with the marketing and everything else of these companies. Like, it was super hip to be involved in all these different groups over the last 3 or 4 years. And now it's like, I think a lot of these groups are struggling, but it's because they're all just doing the same things and they're just raising money, and you're like wondering where the money's going, what it's doing. So I think we're kind of at this point right now where, looking at just, I don't know the situation in Pennsylvania, but in New York, we've got a lot of like anti-hunting legislation that's out there and being floated out there in the Capitol. And we've got a pretty left-leaning like political system here in New York, as most people are aware. And there's a fight to keep a lot of our ways of life. So, how can I best use my time and energy and money if I'm putting it towards a cause? Like, I want to put it towards, protecting our lifestyle and making sure that we're educating people about why we do what we do. So that's a big piece for me in trying to understand like how I can best do that. Is it through the podcast? Is it through engaging with my local Rod and Gun Club, which is part of the federations, which is New York State? Every region has a federation group that ultimately like ranks up to the top of the state, and then you all come together as a one voice that speaks to the state on the different legislation. So like, I'm kind of thinking that's where I need to be spending some of my energy, is getting more engaged locally here, like literally like in my town with the local Rod and Gun Club, because I don't belong. I've never been, don't know anybody there, but it's all a bunch of guys like literally my grandfather's age that are trying to fight the good fight, and there's nobody in their 30s who's showing up to any of these meetings. So that's one thing right there. But Shed Fest is coming soon, so I'm working on putting that together. This will be our 3rd year doing that, and that's a shed hunting contest. We're going to kind of roll it back to the same format we did in 2020, which was like a photo contest, and then with having a party at the end. We're going to do the party on the 23rd of April at Windy Brew as well. And, we did that last year. It was awesome. We had probably 75, 80 people there, and it was a hell of a party. And we raised a bunch of money for the Deer Association. We had people brought their horns and had a couple different guys there that are certified scorers with the Northeast Big Buck Club and the New York Big Buck Club, and people could actually enter their sheds into the record books, which was really cool. So we're going to be doing that again. April 23rd will be the date of that, and anybody who wants to participate, kind of keep their eyes peeled. We'll be putting stuff out soon with the t-shirt. I'm in the process of getting that designed, and wrangling up people for sponsoring different prizes and things like that. So those are like kind of our two things.
Let us know. We'll obviously do another sponsor this year for that.
Yeah, I'd love that. I appreciate your support, and yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think that's the beauty of having, kind of going back to how we started the conversation. Like, we can do whatever we want to do. Like, you can do what you want to do with your podcast. It's your thing. You're not owned by anybody. You can, if you want to do this, you can do this. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So that's like, hunting season's behind us. Like, I'm kind of rejuvenated a little bit and ready to get going with some of these things that we've done over the last few years to, engage with the community and get out there and start doing stuff again. So
I like it.
Yeah. No, awesome, football. We haven't. We're all freaking athletes here. We haven't talked at all. We got the playoffs coming.
Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. I would like to see an Eagles-Bills Super Bowl. That would be pretty badass.
I'm going to try to get the tickets to the home game for next year. So if you're interested in coming to Philly, my sister lives obviously Jim lives super close. My sister lives closer to Philly in that area. Come on down.
You guys realize if it's a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl that like this part of the country is just going to like be lit on fire.
Yeah, it's going to blow up.
Yeah, it's going to be, I don't know. So I don't know if do you guys pay a lot of attention to the NFL? And yeah. So they just came out today and announced that Tua is indefinitely out. He's not playing for the Dolphins on Sunday. So the Bills are playing a Tua-less Dolphins team, which is should be a tire fire, and we should just rock them, which would be awesome.
Starters out by third quarter would be very nice for the Bills.
Dude, they could have a bye without having a bye week. It'd be nice.
Exactly.
So that should be fun. So we have season tickets, so we'll be there Sunday, and
I love. Can I go on record here? And I love, because of being a huge sports fan, like I love when you post being at the games, because I feel like I'm somewhat there, and I'm like, oh man, that looks so much fun. It would be so cool to do that. But so keep those coming for the playoffs.
Have you guys been to NFL games before?
I've been to Eagles games. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know what the tailgate scene is with that. Is it good or not good? Like, what's it like
It's
there?
rowdy, but I've been to both, many times, and the Eagles are rowdy. They're some of the best fans in the game, but they still don't hold a candle to Buffalo.
Yeah.
So put that on record.
Yeah, when we had when we we're at the last, so the Bills played the Dolphins. They flexed that game to Saturday night there a few weeks ago, and this is just classic Buffalo, right? It was snowing all day, like hard, and there's just snow piles everywhere, and the snow like stopped as soon as we got there to start tailgating. So it was like 3.5, 4 hours before the game, and so it's right before Christmas too. So there's a huge snow pile at the corner of the street, and there's this guy wearing a Santa outfit with a dolphin, and he's got like a big stuffed dolphin, and he's got this sign that says "Tua is a bitch" on the sign, and he's got the dolphin, and he's just humping the shit out of this dolphin right at the corner of this main intersection on top of this snow pile. And it's just for hours, dude, for hours on end, this guy's just doing it, and just people just honking their horn. It's like, oh my God, this is just beautiful, And that's Buffalo, that's what we do.
His name's probably Rick, and he goes into work on Monday. His colleagues are like, Rick,
he probably sells insurance.
It's probably like, typical weekend.
Standard weekend.
He probably sells like life insurance.
Probably all buttoned up, and then he just shows up to the Ralph on Sundays and just does some real awful things to stuffed animals.
Buffalo games are neat because it reminds you of like the old school high school games where the whole town is at the game and everybody's cooking out and just having a great time. It's there's not another scene like it unless you go to it's very similar, Jared, to Penn State games. Yep.
Yeah. I've actually heard quite a few people make that comment, that it's very similar to like a college atmosphere, especially what Penn State has.
Yeah. It's funny.
That's
like
cool.
I've had seasons this is our 11th season having them, and it's like you kind of get like numb to it after a while. I mean, I've been to probably, I don't know, it's probably close to 100 games now, and it's just like nothing seems amazing. And then you listen to people's like experiences of it. Like I've experienced some pretty amazing, like the Bills beating the Patriots last year in the playoffs when it was 0 degrees out and we just throttled them. Like that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Like it was just 3 hours of euphoria of just the stadium was just lit, But like, people were talking about how crazy the game was on Sunday, and I was like, it just seemed like another day at the stadium. Like it wasn't anything different than what I've experienced. But I anticipate that this weekend should be pretty wild. Dolphins are in town. We hate the Dolphins, and hopefully we just wreck them.
I just hope Josh Allen clears his interceptions up, cleans that up a little bit.
I know. But then he totally redeems himself with throwing a 60-yard bomb across the field flat-footed and lands right in Diggs' breadbasket. It's like,
does he hunt?
Josh Allen? I don't think so. There's a few guys on the team that do. He might. He doesn't.
I would think because he's from Wyoming, right?
No, he's from California. He's from a very, very small farming. He grew up on a farm in California, small town, Firebaugh, California. That's where he's from. But he went to Wyoming for college, But
Billy knows his blood type.
Yeah, he's a type X. We don't blend, Jim.
Oh man, awesome, dude. Well, I guess we could wrap things up, Bill. You talked about the Shed Fest. You have your beer event coming up. Anything else coming down the pipeline?
No. I appreciate you guys having us on and talking about what we've got happening, and it's always fun chewing the fat with you guys and just real talking. What it is that we do and why we do it, and I'm always passionate to talk about that stuff.
Oh, before we get off, who is winning in the Harvey Whitetail Classic challenge?
Oh, the Great American Harvey Whitetail deer killing freezer stacking competition.
Yes, that.
Big Jim and I, we tied this year. 6-6 is what the final score was. I put the push on Jimbo. He was up 6-5 heading into the last week of the season. And on my last hunt, second to last hunt, it was basically my last hunt, I went out at the farm that he hunts at all the time, and I shot a two-year-old buck that he let walk like 3 or 4 times throughout the season. And this buck, dude, so I missed a bigger one earlier in the day, and I went in. We were doing a still hunt, and this was muzzleloader, and we're working through this bedding area, and I jump up the buck that I missed earlier with the doe that was with him, and I couldn't get a shot at him. And about 10 minutes later, we were just creeping through this bedding area, and I catch movement in the brush, and here's a deer doubling back on the drive, and ended up being the buck I shot, and he was between me and the pusher next to me, and once he got by us, he stopped right in the one opening I had, and he was broadside, and I could see he had a couple broken tine, or at least a broken tine, a G3, and he turned his head and looked at me, and I saw that he was a basket rack, and I was like, and I just didn't even think twice. I just put it right on his shoulder and shot, and I get up to the deer, and I'm like, he measured 87 inches. If he wasn't broken, he would have been a 100-inch buck. He was a nice buck, and I'm super happy with him, and it ended up being a profitable deer for me. I won our Harvey, the family big buck contest. I won that, and we got first place in the Rut Madness contest here in Western New York. Dallas and I are on the same team together. We had a great season, and and then I send the picture to Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, "You son of a bitch!" He goes, "I let that deer walk several times this year because I know he was going to be a big 8 next year," and I'm like, "Well, he's." Guarantee he's not gonna get any bigger. So that was nice. pretty sweet to have that be the last deer I shot to tie up the season. So we tied again for 2 years in a row. And yeah,
but you killed 3 bucks though.
I did kill 3 bucks.
Yep. It's gotta count for something.
3 bucks in 3 different places. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. Good stuff, Bill. Well, I just appreciate all you guys coming on, chatting. I love it. And Bill, where could people follow along, listen to Pert Near Outdoors podcast if they're already not doing so?
Yeah, just Pert Near Outdoors podcast on any of the social channels and any podcast app. That's where we're at. Usually put out it kind of at an episode every couple of weeks is our pace right now, and I'll probably keep that up here for a little bit. But going to record an episode tomorrow, so I'll get something out here next week, and I might even, if you don't care, I might even take this episode and because I've been recording it as well, I might post it up on ours just so anybody that's doesn't cross over can hear you guys a little bit too. So, yeah,
I'd love it. Could do it, man. All about it. So, all right, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Till next time, Antler up.
Fade them.
Done record. There we go. Fading them. Awesome, guys.
Oh, man. I didn't get a chance to say that Billy is an amazing hunter, and he's the one that helped me get that deer. Oh, fuck, Bill. See, I fucked up.
I never turned off the record there, so that is on the record.
Keep it going.
And by the way, Jim loves Dallas.
I gave Dallas all the credit last time, Jeremy, when we talked about the deer story, and I left Billy hanging, and I should have, because he's the one that put in just as much work. So, but
yeah. I called Jim afterwards. I go, you know what grinds my gears? I'm like, you freaking just loved on Dallas that entire podcast. Didn't hardly say a word about me. I was like, I'm hurt, brother.
Yeah, I know it was fucked up.
People don't forget. I know where you're going to be on every drive next year. I'll put you in the shittiest spot.
Oh, stop it. And even right after I shot, and after I yelled out, the very first yell that I heard echo back to me was Billy. So,
I love it.